Ladies and gentlemen, the host of today's forum, Acting Minister of Gender Equality and Family, and other distinguished guests are entering the hall right now. Please give a big round of applause. Acting Minister of Gender Equality and Family, Shin Young-suk, and please give another round of applause to our VIPs. Thank you so much. 2024 Korea Gender Equality Forum. For today's forum, there are many distinguished guests from various sectors of society and countries. Acting Minister Shin Young-suk and Climate Change Center Chair Yu Young-suk and others, they are entering this conference hall and taking their seats.
네, 오늘 이 자리에
Thank you so much for being here with us. I believe we are right now facing challenges, grave challenges for the humanity. AI and climate change are not just about science and technology. It is about how we should reflect upon humans and society. At the center of the shift, there is a gender equality. AI for humans and society, and for response to climate change, we need to have fairness and diversity as our primary values. Fairness and diversity are very essential values to create a society for all and for better innovation. It is a truly essential value that leads to gender equal society, which is also an essential value for future society. I believe that everyone, online, offline, would agree to this. Now, I'd like to watch a video on gender equal society at higher standards. Please watch the video. Since 2020, the Korea Gender Equality Forum has served as a platform to share the Republic of Korea's gender equality policy experiences with the global community and promote the expansion of gender equality agendas. Experts from various fields, government organizations, businesses have presented a new gender equality paradigm by engaging in discussions and exploring solutions to challenging issues. The Korea Gender Equality Forum is striving to present a direction for global community to pursue together by addressing gender equality agendas that embrace gender, generations, nations, and regions. At 2024 Korea Gender Equality Forum, we will navigate future industries and gender equality. It will be a meaningful occasion to discuss the rapidly changing future industries and how gender equality can contribute to innovation and sustainability. What gender equality perspectives should be addressed in the fields of AI and climate change? The keynote speech will discuss making AI work for people and society. How we can measure and understand the impact of AI on gender and race and the gender equality issues within the larger context of climate change. In the first session, we will explore the challenges of ensuring fairness and diversity in AI development and utilization, and examine the challenges for talent development and enhancing diversity in the AI field. In the second session, we will delve into the impact of global climate change on regions and genders, as well as the importance of international cooperation. We will also address a transition towards a net zero economy and employment prospects. 2024 Korea Gender Equality Forum, paving the way for innovation through fairness and diversity and opening a sustainable future through gender equality. Let's take the first step now. 2024 Korea Gender Equality Forum. I'd like to greet everyone participating in this forum, both offline and online. I am Bang No-won, the announcer from KBS, who will be moderating and emceeing for this occasion. Let me introduce our VIPs. First, the host of today's forum, Acting Minister of Gender Equality and Family, Shin Young-suk. Please give her a big round of applause. Next, Lee In-sun, a chair of the National Assembly Commission on Gender Equality and Family. A keynote speaker of today's forum, Climate Change Center Chair Yoo Young-suk. Please give a big hand. Next, Ha Myung, chair of the Korean women's groups. Next, the region ambassador to Korea, Ms. Anna Kari Hansen. Great to see you. And German ambassador to Korea, Georg Wilfried Schmidt. Please give a big hand. Next, the chairs of each session. First, Kwon Oh-nam, President of Korea Federation of Women's Science and Technology Associations, and UN Global Compact Korea Network, Yoo Yeon-chul. Please give a big hand. He's the Executive Director of UN Global Compact Network Korea. And there are so many other ambassadors to Korea gracing this occasion with their presence. Irish Ambassador to Korea, Michelle Winthrop. Please give a big hand. Great to see you. And next to her, Tunisian Ambassador to Korea, Kai Staraji. Next, Belgian Ambassador to Korea, Bruno Jans. Please give a big hand. Next, Natalia Fedri de Guello, President of ASAS. Please give her a big hand. And please look at the screen to read other VIPs who are participating in this forum. There are so many great distinguished speakers participating for this forum. In the interest of time, I will not name each and every one, and the moderators will introduce these speakers at each designated session. I would like to start an opening ceremony. We'll invite Acting Minister of Gender Equality and Family, Shin Young-suk, to the podium for an opening speech. Please give her a big round of applause.
Good afternoon. I am Shin Young-suk, Vice Minister of Gender Equality and Family. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you who have joined us today, either in person or online, for Korea Gender Equality Forum. I would like to extend special thanks to Representative Lee In-sun, who is the chair of the National Assembly Women and Family Committee, for taking time. And I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to Ms. Armida Ali Shavana, the Executive Secretary of UNESCOP, and Ambassador Anna Kari Hansen Obin of Norway to Korea, Ambassador Georg Wilfried Schmidt of Germany to Korea, and other distinguished guests and ambassadors from Ireland, Tunisia, and Belgium. My thanks also go to Mr. Andrew Strait, the Associate Director of the Ada Lovelace Institute, and Chairperson Yoo Young-suk of the Climate Change Center for their keynote speeches, and President Kwon Oh-nam of the Korea Federation of Women Science and Technology Association, and Executive General Yoo Yeon-chul of UN Global Compact Network Korea for moderating sessions, and all of our speakers and panelists. Many organizations and institutions participate in the event, including Ms. Ho Myung, chairperson of the Korean National Council of Women. Thank you. These days, we can feel significant changes happening around us. With the development of AI-driven industries, our way of life is changing day by day. We are also experiencing the effects of climate change through the heat waves and tropical night. Under these circumstances, I think it's important that this forum focuses on AI and climate change issues under the theme of future industries and gender equality. And as a responsible member of the international community, the Korea and government announced the Digital Bill of Rights, which contains 5 principles of freedom, fairness, safety, innovation, and solidarity. The government is committed to protecting the safety and fundamental rights of citizens while pursuing digital technology innovation. And under this vision, the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family is also actively supporting education and training for new and high value-added jobs such as AI, semiconductor, basic design, bio, and strengthening employment support services to help women with career disruption enter high-quality jobs through Women's Internship Program for new jobs and multi-ministry collaboration projects. In addition, we established a dedicated response team for deepfake-related sex crimes at the Digital Sex Crime Victim Support Center, providing comprehensive services ranging from victim counseling to consent deletion and support and the monitoring of distribution. Distinguished participants, we are living in a time of great upheaval and extreme uncertainty. The pace of innovation driven by AI is so rapid that it's difficult to predict how climate change will change human life. To overcome these challenges, we need to harness the creativity and capability of our communities. In particular, differences in diversity must become sources of our creativity, and inclusion and integration of diversity should create a synergy. And I hope that through the discussions happening in today's forum, we can gather wisdom for Korea and the international community to move toward a more gender equitable society, including diversity and fairness in the future industries. Once again, I would like to thank all of you for your participation in this forum. Let us remember that our choices and actions today will determine our tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Acting Minister Shin Young-suk, for the welcoming remarks.
다음은 대한민국 양성평등 포럼.
Next, we'd like to hear congratulatory messages from our VIPs. First, Chair of Gender Equality and Family Committee under National Assembly, Lee In-sun, will come to the podium for a congratulatory message. Please give a big hand. Great to see you all. Thank you. Thank you so much. Today's topic is quite heavy, so it seems like everyone is nervous. That is why I greeted you twice. I am in charge of the planning and finance at the National Assembly, and I'm also serving as chair for Gender Equality and Family in the National Assembly. Today, we are gathered at the 2024 Korea Gender Equality Forum. This gives me a tremendous honor. Let me first extend my gratitude to the Vice Minister and Acting Minister of Gender Equality and Family, Shin Young-suk. She's doing her job in a very excellent manner. Please give a big hand. Thank you, Acting Minister Shin Young-suk and her organizing team for this great event. Today's forum is about one of the globally important issues, which is gender equality. That is why we've invited so many distinguished guest ambassadors to Korea, Kwon Nam, the Acting Minister of Gender Equality and the Family, and the Executive Director of the Global Compact Network Korea and Climate Change Center Chair. All of these people are gathered together for today's forum. Thank you so much for your participation. Now we are living in an age of technological revolution, AI, blockchain, big data, and others. We are exposed to these latest technologies. However, these latest technologies do not offer equal access to everyone. We have to think about this matter. And especially there is a gender gap when it comes to access to these latest technologies. If you have to consider there is any gender gap to the latest technologies. If we look at the AI sector, which will be the keynote session topic, AI brings both good sides and negative sides. I believe the fake is one of the negative side effects of AI. Algorithms depend on male-dominated or male-centered data, which creates biases against women, and we have to make sure there's no bias in the development process of AI. And there's another topic, climate change. Climate change is one of the most important challenges for the humanity. When we face natural disasters and other crises, then the women and children, they should be protected from another vulnerability that can be created by climate change. Our committee under the National Assembly will pay close attention to the issues brought upon during this forum, and will try to make legislations addressing these challenges. With this, I'd like to extend my gratitude once again, and I wish you health and happiness. Thank you so much for your attention. That was the Chair of Gender Equality and Family Committee under the National Assembly, Lee In-sun.
2024
2024, the Gender Equalities Forum is being held, and there is a speaker who couldn't be here today but sent her congratulatory message from afar. I would like to welcome via video Ms. Armida Sasia Alishavana, Executive Secretary of the UN.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to speak at this forum and extend my warm congratulations to the government of the Republic of Korea for organizing this important event. As we gather today, our region is undergoing a profound transformation. The rapid rise of digital technologies, AI, and urgent actions on climate change are forging new industries and opportunities that were unimaginable just a few years ago. For women and girls, these emerging sectors offer new avenues to leadership, entrepreneurship, and decent work that were previously out of reach. Yet the promise of progress is not guaranteed. Women and girls in the Asia-Pacific region continue to face lower access to digital technologies, finance and credit, are underrepresented in science, technology, and engineering, and encounter systemic barriers that put them at risk of being left behind in digital and green transitions. This is not just a missed opportunity for women, it's a profound loss for economies, societies, and our common future. To ensure women benefit from emerging industries and enable both people and the planet to flourish, we must act decisively. I propose 3 key solutions. First, we must close the gender digital divide. This means providing women and girls, especially in underserved areas, with equal access to digital technologies by investing in digital infrastructure, offering digital skills training, and promoting women in STEM. We can empower them to excel in both the digital and green economies. We must also champion women's leadership in emerging industries. This involves supporting their transition with specialized training, including in digital technology, artificial intelligence, and green jobs, and implementing enabling policies that balance caregiving responsibilities and guarantee decent work. Finally, we must scale up investment to boost women's entrepreneurship and drive innovation. Gender-responsive climate financing and improved access to credit and venture capital for women entrepreneurs is critical to closing the gender finance gap, particularly in male-dominated sectors. We are proud to support women's transition into digital and green economies. Our flagship study for the 80th session of our commission offers a robust framework to help the region foster digital innovation that drive social, economic, and environmental progress. And in the past 5 years, our Catalyzing Women's Entrepreneurship program has mobilized over $100 million and provided digital literacy training to thousands of women entrepreneurs, empowering them to innovate boldly and drive transformative change for the future. Looking ahead, we will convene in November the Beijing Plus 30 Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference in collaboration with UN Women. This conference will be another pivotal moment to power up our efforts to unlock the immense capabilities of women and girls. As we engage in the discussion today, let us remember that our shared purpose is our greatest strength. Together, we can ensure women and girls are at the forefront of the economies that will shape our collective future. I wish you all a very productive forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Armida Zasalshia Ali Shabana, Executive Secretary of UNESCOP, and for the congratulatory message. And we are providing simultaneous interpretation. Channel number 1 is Korean, channel number 2 is English. And we are going to hear from ambassadors.
Anna Kari Hansen.
First, Norwegian Ambassador Anna Kari Hansen-Obid, please come to the podium for a congratulatory speech. Please give her a welcoming round of applause.
Dear Shin Yoon-suk, Minister of Gender and Family, Chairperson for Gender Equality and Family Committee, Ms. Lee In-soon, Excellencies, dear friends, guests, 안녕 하십니까? 저는 노르웨이 대사 안나 카리 우빈입니다. And I'm very pleased to be here and address this distinguished audience. Gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but a necessity, foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. Gender equality also holds great economic value for a country. Norway is a good example of how women entering the Norwegian workforce and contribute to economic growth. We are all facing difficult challenges: rapid climate change, an unsustainable international security situation, a global increase in extreme poverty, the surge of digital world, including the artificial intelligence, and declining fertility rates, only to mention a few. And those challenges have important implications for the Women, Peace and Security agenda. Norway was one of the first countries to develop a national action plan on women, peace and security in 2006. Women, peace and security was a priority area also for Norway during our rotating period at the Security Council, a theme that Korea also keeps high on the agenda during its current period at the Council. Norway's 5th National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security, launched last year, aims to strengthen national and international implementation of this agenda towards 2030. In this respect, I'm very pleased to be present at the 5th Gender Equality Forum here in Korea. And I'm also pleased to see so many colleagues supporting this forum, and also happy to share the stage with my German colleague. Norway and Germany work closely together and are members of the Equity 2030 Alliance, which aims at building an equitable future for all by closing gaps and create more gender-inclusive solutions in science, technology, and financing. In a world where technology and science have the power to shape the future, we must ensure that women and girls be actively included in the design and development of solutions. Artificial intelligence can be a powerful tool and at the same time a major risk factor. Using historically biased data sets, for example, can teach an artificial intelligence system that it is correct to reinforce discriminatory measures. It is clear that there is a need for better follow-up on this technology. One example is to teach the algorithms to learn smarter and be a positive force for equality. Fortunately, much is being done to bring out the positive forces in the technology. Last week, during the UN General Assembly in New York, world leaders adopted a pact for the future, including a global digital compact. This is the very first comprehensive global framework for digital cooperation and artificial intelligence governance. At the heart of this compact is commitment to design, use and govern technology for the benefit of all. Digital solutions and artificial intelligence are not smart if this had not been designed for women or having women in mind as well. This brings me to the other main topic of this conference, climate change, the defining issue of our time. Climate change and climate policies can have different impact on women and men, and we must ensure that the green shift does not amplify gender inequality, but bring about equal job opportunities and just transition to carbon-neutral societies. Together with the other Nordic countries, Norway has gathered knowledge on the interconnections between gender and climate change, and at the UN Commission on the Status of Women in 2022, we presented a commitment on gender equality and climate change, including ensuring equal access in decision-making processes on climate change. Distinguished guests, we need to look at climate policies with a gender lens and build more awareness and actively evaluate and consider the gender impact of our policy measures. This is why addressing climate policy at Korea Gender Equality Forum is so important, and I wish all participants fruitful discussions and a successful forum for our better future. Thank you for your attention. 감사합니다.
네, 세계에서
So thank you very much. That was the speech from the Norwegian ambassador. So Norway is one of the highest rankings countries in terms of gender equality. So now we are going to invite Ambassador Georg Wilfried Schmidt of the Germany for his congratulatory remarks.
안녕하십니까. Dear Vice Minister, Honorable Member of Parliament, and there are so many dignitaries in the room, and it's easier when you speak later, so you could say all protocol observed, as they did in other forums as well. But then I come to ladies, and I'm very happy to see also some gentlemen in the room, because what we're talking about is not just dealing with ladies, it's dealing with all of us in society. And I think many men still don't get it, that it's very much about men as much as about women. So in Germany, gender equality is enshrined in our constitution, but when the people wrote that constitution, they already saw in the 1950s that we're far away from it. And it's been a constant struggle for decades to move the legal requirements, but also, which is equally or even much more important, to move the cultural mindset of how we want to live together. And I think it was said before also by my Norwegian colleague, people realize then that it's also about the full potential of a society. So even if you are not convinced of gender equality for other reasons, but look at the hard facts and numbers, it just means that that a society doesn't use its full potential. And can we afford that? Today, if I look at Germany, women make up of 35% in our parliament, and there are all kinds of rules about women's participation in the workforce and leadership positions. So we have much more of a presence, and I think the fact that we had a lady as chancellor who was highly respected served as a quite strong role model. But it's a lot about role models. If you look at science, for instance, when women, where the female scientists, where women say, I want to be like her. And this is what catches your heart. And you can go through this in many, many different areas, the importance of role models. And despite advances, we still see that women are underrepresented and often excluded from critical decision-making spaces. And one of the things that are quite important, I think, is gender pay gap that persists. And that cannot be acceptable, that you earn less money than a man, even sometimes for the same work. And we do still see a disproportionate share of women in unpaid care work. Now, I stand here as a man, and I'm envious of the way we are today, at least in Germany. I would have wished when I was a young father that some of the provisions are available today would have been available then, because I would have organized my life in a different way then. And I think I and the family, we would have benefited from it, but it was not available or not as easily available. So my call is also for the men, take it as an opportunity. You will not regret it if you spend more time doing other things, if you spend more time with the children when you have them. This time never comes back, and it's something that I can really encourage anyone. So this is coming back to the underlying structures and underlying systems sustaining inequalities. And I think there's still a long way to go in Germany and in our interactions with other nations. When I look at our interactions with other nations, we have for some years what our minister calls a feminist foreign policy. I remember as Africa director, way before we had feminist foreign policy, one travel to an African country together with my Swedish colleague. And at that time, Sweden was one of the first forerunners in feminist foreign policy. And it opened my eye because we were all looking at the political divides between the government and the opposition. And my Swedish colleague said, no. In this visit, when we do this, I want to see what is the situation of women. And suddenly it added a very different angle because the women said, whether it's the opposition or whether it's the people in government, we all have similar issues. So it added a very different angle to our way of looking at the situation. And I will not forget that. It's just a personal anecdote. My Norwegian colleague also already mentioned the Equity Alliance, and we're very proud to be partnering with Norway in this. And I see every country has a different history, every country comes from a different perspective, but we all share like common challenges when it comes to gender equality. And isn't it strange that socially and technologically so advanced nations, and yet we have these gender disparities remaining in leadership, politics, and technology? I mean, when you ask yourself, isn't it strange? And I would say, if we look at a global gender gap report, I would think when you sort of analyze a nation, it should be, we all look at the GDP, but it should be as important as looking at the GDP to look at the global gender gap and say, like, where do we find our countries and where do we want to find them? And we don't do that enough yet. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand here and we talk about two very important topics, technological advancement and environmental sustainability. And climate change and AI, they're not neutral forces, but they're shaped by human choices. And they affect men and women and marginalized groups in very different ways. Just one concrete example, again, like climate change and floodings. If you look at the statistics, in many countries, the amount of women who die from flooding is much higher than the amount of men. And why? Because in many countries, women are not given the opportunity to learn how to swim. Now, when you come from a country where it's normal that men and women have to attend swimming lessons, whether their parents like it or not, it's something that doesn't come to your mind. But when you break it down, then you have one concrete example, and there are many, many others. It's like, say, this cannot happen. Just because you were denied a certain opportunity, you're put into a much higher risk. And it tells you a lot about, like, first of all, to realize and to acknowledge what's happening. And there are unconscious biases in many, many ideas. And it was talked about unconscious biases. Also, the Honourable Member of Parliament, she talked about unconscious biases in AI and other systems. So when I look at the country here that we're in, it's shocking to see also that deep fakes and porns are used against women exclusively. So there is a very special case about this and to do something about it. And the minister mentioned that earlier. So how do we ensure the challenges and opportunities presented to us by climate change and AI contribute to a more equal and just society for all genders, and not deepen existing disparities? I think that's a truly important question for all of us. That's why we're here together in this room. There will be a lot of expertise on that, and I all wish us a very good and fruitful forum on this, and thank you for inviting me and organizing this forum. 감사합니다.
슈미트 주한 독일 대사님의
Thank you very much. That was a congratulatory speech from the Ambassador Georg Wilfried Schmidt. Thank you very much for all your congratulatory remarks. It's time to hear the first keynote of Korea Gender Equality Forum. I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Andrew Strait, Associate Director of the Ada Lovelace Institute in the United Kingdom. Ada Lovelace Institute is named after the first female computer scientist, Ada Lovelace, and is leading research aimed at developing AI for missions like gender equality. It's going to speak on the topic of making AI work for people and society, understanding the impact of AI on gender and racial inequalities. Please welcome Mr. Andrew Strait.
My name is Andrew Strait. I'm an Associate Director of Emerging Technology and Industry Practice at the Ada Lovelace Institute, a research body based in London with a mission to ensure that data and AI work for people and society. I want to start off by saying I'm so sorry to not be there in Seoul with you all today for this incredible event, but want to express my gratitude to the Korean Gender Equality Forum for giving me the chance to speak about this topic, making AI work for people in society, understanding the impacts of gender and racial inequalities in AI systems. By inequalities, of course, I mean the uneven distribution of AI systems, uneven distribution of resources, opportunities, or outcomes among different groups in society. And by AI systems, I broadly mean in this talk any kind of AI system or computational system used to try to achieve tasks that previously required human attention, behavior, cognition, or capabilities. If improperly designed, these systems can exacerbate societal inequalities. And in this talk, I want to talk about how that happens and offer some solutions for a way forward. So I'd like to begin with a quick story. This story begins about a hospital here where I live in London. This hospital, St. George's, ran a medical school, and this medical school had a problem. They were receiving about 2,000 admissions applications a year, which is far too many for their staff to get through, and they wanted to make a process for making their admissions easier and more objective. So to do that, they designed an algorithmic system which was trained on previous data around the successful admissions to their hospital. This algorithm looked at all kinds of aspects of admission, so their CV, their resume, their name, and it was implemented for about a 4-year period. But after those 4 years, it was discovered to be horrendously racially biased. It was rejecting any applicant who had non-European sounding names. Now, this is a common issue in algorithm systems where a particular data point may be one that has an overweighted importance in the decision-making process of the system. But perhaps the most shocking thing about this example is that it happened in 1982. And more than 40 years later, we're still grappling with many of the same challenges around algorithmic and racial bias in AI systems. The University of Texas Admissions, for example, found that an algorithmic system used in their admissions process for computer science department was unfairly discriminating against women and minorities. And similar, an Amazon recruitment algorithm used in 2015 for making admissions decisions for their recruitment was found to be discriminating against female names and anyone who went to an all-female university. So gender and racial bias in algorithmic systems continues. It continues to this day. And it's therefore important that we reflect on why these issues are so persistent, what steps we can take to address them. One of the reasons why it's so persistent is because AI is so persistent. It's almost everywhere in society now. It includes systems that predict the risk of a loan that will be rejected, determine what information you see in your social media news feed, or assess the results of a school exam for your children. Today, AI is being used in ways that shape how we understand each other, how the state understands its citizens, and how even we understand ourselves. It is changing the nature of our relationships with our teacher, our loved ones, our doctors, our lawyers, and our politics. Put simply, AI systems are pervasive and ubiquitous. And that means that AI biases as well are becoming pervasive and ubiquitous. In the last 5 years, a growing body of research has found severe issues of gender, racial, or sociodemographic discrimination caused by biased algorithmic systems that weight certain characteristics over others. These include automated credit card applications that offer far better terms to male than female applicants with the same information, algorithms that discriminate who can enter a country based on their gender or the color of their skin, algorithms that are used to proctor test exams that cannot identify darker-skinned faces and accuse those individuals of cheating, and even algorithms that are designed to protect women from domestic violence, but which fail to do so because they fail to appropriately weight certain risks, in some cases leading to death. These issues may only be getting worse as we move into a world of generative AI systems like ChatGPT or Google's Gemini. These are technologies that are trained on much larger amounts of data, often from the internet. And because they're from the internet, they often bake in all kinds of biases against women and minorities. One study from Dr. Abeba Brahani found that one of the largest data sets used to train models like ChatGPT contains extreme racist and misogynistic content. And that content, that data, creates biases that lead to discriminatory behaviors in their use. A recent study found that generative AI systems produce racist responses simply based on the kind of dialect that one uses when speaking. So speaking with it in African-American vernacular English will produce more negative and more hostile responses than speaking to it in sort of the Queen's English. Similarly, these kinds of systems can exacerbate existing kinds of gendered harms against women and minorities. One in particular is non-consensual generative pornography. A 2019 Deep Trace study found non-consensual deepfake pornography accounted for 96% of all deepfake videos produced on the internet. And almost all of those videos were of women. Similarly, a 2024 study drew on a survey of over 16,000 respondents in 10 different countries and found that 2.2% of all of those individuals had personally experienced non-consensual generative pornography victimization. That's a higher rate of victimization in most countries than theft or violent crime. We also know that AI is linked to risks of job displacement that can exacerbate societal inequalities. About 50 to 70% of the growth in the US wage inequality between 1980 and 2016 was caused by automation. And this will only get worse as AI technologies become more ubiquitous. The International Monetary Fund estimates that about 60% of jobs in advanced economies will be exposed to automation. But crucially, this automation will not be felt equally. Because of existing gender equality gaps in certain roles like STEM sciences or senior leadership positions, more women than men stand to lose their jobs by the end of the decade because of the rise of artificial intelligence and automation. So how do we address this issue? I think first, it's important to acknowledge that AI technologies can exacerbate gender, racial, and sociodemographic inequalities. One of the reasons I think this happens is because it's very easy to think of AI as a kind of magic wand, this silver bullet technology that can be applied to solve any kind of issue or task. It's often thought of as being more objective than humans. But what this fails to reflect is that these technologies simply reflect the biases of the data, developers, users in society that build and use them. To put it very simply, AI people are biased, and that means that AI systems are going to be biased because AI is simply people all the way down. It's people who make up data, people who collect and label that data, people who train an AI system, people who sell that system, and people who use that system, and people who are ultimately impacted by those systems. So getting this right means working towards a world where technology supports all members of society. That's a world in which we think about the societies that we want to build first, rather than the technologies that we want to build. That requires first understanding how biases can arise in these systems, and that's what I'd like to talk about now in the next few slides. So first, I think one of the main causes of bias in these kinds of systems is oftentimes an issue that arises at different stages of their development and deployment. This graphic comes from David Leslie and team at the Alan Turing Institute and reflects how biases can arise in different stages of the design, development, and deployment context of AI systems. It specifically looks at healthcare applications, but it's widely applicable to almost any context. In this graphic, you can see that real-world patterns of health inequality and discrimination are often reflected in discriminatory data sets that reflect and exacerbate those biases. That then feeds into bias design and deployment practices, where a tool might be designed for one type of individual or one community that does not work for others. And in turn, those systems can have application injustices, where they're used in ways to discriminate or exclude certain members of society, such as over-surveilling a particular population or excluding certain demographics from job applications. One of the major issues that we see as well is around representation. Diversity and representation are crucial for developing better AI products because they help reduce bias, provide broader perspectives, and improve problem solving. By including researchers from varied backgrounds, AI systems can be designed to be more inclusive, effective, and beneficial for a much wider range of users, ultimately leading to products that better serve and empower all segments of society. But that's not what we see often when it comes to the gender and racial gaps in research. 70% of the most cited AI papers in the last 3 years have come from US-based institutions and organizations, reflecting a regional inequality. There were enormous gender inequalities in AI research. This 2017 study found that the gender imbalance across 23 countries for people who are published in major machine learning conferences is about 88% men against women. And there are enormous inequalities in language and in the types of data used to train AI systems. About 50% of all internet-level data is in English, with Spanish being the next closest at 5.5%. The problem is that when we start to move to a world where AI systems are trained on large amounts of internet-level data, we see those language inequalities and biases reflected in the outcomes. A recent study from Rest of World looked at how ChatGPT fails to produce sensical responses in languages spoken by hundreds of millions of people, like Bengali, Kurdish, and Tamil. Now, that means that not all people in society will equally benefit from AI systems if representation gaps are not closed. Another issue is around systemic bias in society. I'm using here an example from the US healthcare context, my home country. In our US healthcare system, there's an algorithmic tool designed to identify individuals who are eligible for additional care or improvements in care who might have complex medical needs. Now, this system is deployed across hospitals in the United States, affecting over 200 million patients in the United States. And an evaluation in 2018 found that the system was offering less care to Black Americans than to white Americans, even though they were equally sick. One of the major reasons why this happened was because it was using a data point to make that determination of eligibility for care that was total health care costs accrued in a single year. And that single data point, unfortunately, failed to acknowledge the systemic bias and racial injustice issues in the United States healthcare system. The reality is that Black Americans do not accrue very much healthcare costs in 1 year compared to white Americans because we live in the United States has many biases around the access to care for those communities, a lot of demonstrated and evidenced discrimination against Black Americans seeking healthcare contexts, which has created a sense of distrust against those communities. So the simple determination of that one data point about healthcare costs accrued created a tool that in turn continuously biased and denied care to millions of Americans, Black Americans. Discriminatory data is another issue we see. I'm drawing here an example from Bloomberg, which did an analysis of stable diffusion, an image generation model that takes text inputs and generates images as outputs. This generation model is deployed in all kinds of products that we might use every day, including Canva. It draws on data sets of millions of images scraped from the internet and labeled by humans. And what Bloomberg did was they prompted this text-to-image model to create representations of workers for 14 different jobs, 300 images for 7 jobs that are typically considered high-paying in the US and 7 that are considered low-paying. The results found that jobs that were images for jobs that tended to be high-paying, such as CEO or lawyer, tended to be representing individuals who had lighter skin colors, while images for lower-paying jobs, such as social worker or fast food worker, tended to represent images of darker-toned individuals. A similar breakdown can be seen in gender inequalities. This example shows how images generated for prompts like architect or engineer produced almost always images that appeared to be perceived men, while images that were generated for jobs like housekeeper or social worker tended to be perceived women. Representation issues are critically important, but they're not the only issue that we see with these systems. Bias design deployment is another major concern. I'm drawing here on 3 pieces of work that my colleagues Mavis Maturori, Anna Studman, and Aidan Pepin did, where they looked at the ways in which inequalities can arise in the UK's health and care system. One issue is around bias design and deployment and these issues of data divides. During the COVID-19 pandemic, our National Health Service found that individuals from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds were up to twice as likely to die from COVID-19 than white Britons. However, the Health Service was unable to investigate possible reasons for this or to offer recommendations to prevent death due to a lack of data. Much of the data that they acquire is coming from digital healthcare technologies, like doctor applications that allow individuals to report their symptoms or identify if they've been diagnosed with COVID-19. Now, the problem we found when we did a national representative survey was that data-driven technologies are not experienced equally in the UK. There is a digital divide where many communities, based on their age, their gender, their race, simply do not have access to internet-connected devices like laptops or phones. And that thereby means that as we move to a more digitized health service, that creates a health data divide, where digitally excluded people are missing or excluded from data-driven health technologies, decision-making, and healthcare. If this data divide isn't closed, those health inequalities can be exacerbated. We followed this research up by talking with developers of data-driven healthcare systems to understand where inequalities might arise in their pipeline for development to deployment of a healthcare technology. We found that at almost every stage along the development pipeline, there are knots, points where health inequality issues arise, but are oftentimes not seriously addressed by a development team. These include the use of very poor data proxies for identifying, making assumptions about the experiences of digitally excluded people. It also included data quality issues, including certain diverging inferences in which certain organizations were drawing wrongful inferences about the health experiences of certain communities. The result of this knotted pipeline is it creates a reinforcing system of unequal systemic impacts for Black, minority, and women communities in the United Kingdom's healthcare service. Lastly, there's issues of biased applications. This is a situation in which we have technologies that appear to work for people, have a very laudable goal of trying to improve access to healthcare, but they nonetheless result in exclusionary outcomes. This project involved a public engagement with people in the United Kingdom who are experiencing socioeconomic poverty. And one of the things that we asked them about was their experience of using healthcare applications that connect a user to their doctor. These are applications that allow you to ask for information on appointments, ask for medical advice, get test results, or seek further follow-on care. And the result was that many individuals experiencing this socioeconomic inequality described these technologies as being exclusionary. They created barriers for their ability to contact their doctor. They were oftentimes malfunctioning. They asked for more information when they'd already been provided. They required signing in at certain times of the day. All in all, it resulted in a situation in which these individuals felt this app was replacing their experience of a doctor rather than complementing it. And that ultimately harmed their trust in the UK's wider healthcare system and denied them care they critically needed. So what can be done about these different kinds of ways in which AI systems can raise bias and inequality issues? Well, for practitioners, I'd like to point to a wonderful resource that our colleagues at Center for Democracy and Technology produced called Navigating Demographic Measurement for Fairness and Equity. One of the major challenges for addressing bias and inequality issues is ensuring that you have data sets that represent the different kinds of demographics and their experiences to understand where inequalities might rise. Acquiring that data is extremely difficult. And in this program of work, CDT have offered several solutions and recommendations for how to do that. They include establishing ongoing relationships with communities affected by measurement activities and inequalities to co-design data collection and handling strategies, discuss potential risks and benefits, and collaboratively define fairness goals. They also suggest using methods that avoid generating or storing sensitive data, and to take great care before using observation and inference methods that identify characteristics that may be protected, such as racial or gender characteristics. Lastly, they ask for a very important aspect, which is to always assess your system's equalities impacts in applied context and in a continuous way. AI systems can be dynamic, they can change over time. A system that might work in one context applied to another might not work. And that requires us to assess and evaluate these systems in an ongoing and continuous basis. For policymakers and regulators, our policy briefing on access denied includes several recommendations for how you can consider equalities impacts in the design deployment of AI systems. These include mandating the use of equalities impact assessments and routine auditing and monitoring to assess for potential bias, particularly in high-stakes contexts like employment, healthcare, or education. We suggest using funding initiatives to increase representation in AI and computer science teams, and to engage with members of protected groups in designing policy solutions. We also recommend that governments provide clear metrics for developers of what they think bias and discrimination means. And finally, we suggest that governments must address digital divides by offering non-digital options as they seek to employ more digital technologies into society. I want to conclude with just a final remark, which is that to improve our practices, laws, and policies around AI development, we do have to consider how we can build these technologies for all members of society, and what that might mean for how we change the way in which we think about the power of AI systems and their appropriate use in society. I want to thank you all so much again for having me come and speak. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
네, 박수 부탁드립니다. 영국에서 기존
Please give another round of applause. That was Andrew Strait, co-chair of Ada Lovelace Research Center. Now I'd like to invite the second keynote speaker. Chair of Climate Change Center, Yu Young-suk, will give us a second keynote speech on international community's role in addressing climate change and promoting gender equality. Please give a big hand.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. 여러분 안녕하십니까?
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. As was introduced, I am a chairperson of the Climate Change Center, Yu Young-suk. Well, the first week of September, it was the week of gender equality. To commemorate Gender Equality Week, the Ministry of Gender Equality in the Family has organized this conference. I'd like to extend my gratitude to Ms. Acting Minister Shin Young-suk and her team for organizing this forum. Today, I'd like to talk about the international community's role in addressing climate change and promoting gender equality. Keynote speech today consists of two parts. The first part is about three parts. The first part is about the climate change and its impact. The second part is about science-based response to climate change. And the third part is about global efforts to promote gender equality in the face of climate change. First, climate change and its impacts. The humanity is facing a risk and other crises due to climate change. And let me give you some facts and statistics about the risk and threats brought about by climate change. You've heard of Davos Forum, the World Knowledge Forum, held in Davos, Switzerland every year. Political, economic leaders across the world gather in Davos to talk about the latest trends, threats, and alternatives, solutions to these risks. In Davos Forum ranked the top global risks from 2022 to 2024. I've compared the data from 2022 to 2024. If you look at 2024, then among 10 global risk factors, the green ones, the 5 ones, are related to the environment, extreme weather events, and grave change to Earth's system, preserving natural resources, pollution, and others. And these environment-related threats are becoming more specific every year. And climate change-related risks are ranking on the top parts as time goes by. It is because of the statistics that we are seeing in the environment sector. As you can see from these slides, Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the UN, said last year that the global warming era has ended, and now the era of global boiling has arrived. And as July 22, 2024, global temperature soared to 70.1.5 degrees Celsius, the highest ever recorded on Earth. And Seoul is also experiencing rapid temperature rise. It experienced 34 consecutive tropical nights, and northern Jeju Island experienced 46 consecutive tropical nights this summer. The Korean Weather Service forecast, if this trend continues, by 2050, the extreme heat days will increase to 45.4 days by 2050. Last year, the extreme heat days was just 14.2 days, so it will triple by 2050. Can you imagine such changes because of the accumulation of CO2 in the atmosphere? According to NOAA of the US, May 2023, atmospheric CO2 levels reached a record 424 ppm, marking a sustained increase not observed in millions of years. And from January to July 2024, the global surface temperature rose higher than the average of 13.8 degrees Celsius for 200 years, marking the highest levels in 175 years of records. So the atmospheric CO2 level and the global temperature are rising every year to bring us more hot nights in the summer that we've experienced this year. James Hansen, the executive director of NASA JIS, said the energy accumulating in the Earth climate system is equivalent to detonating 400,000 atomic bombs daily, all year round. And this imbalance, if this imbalance were double, then we will experience energy accumulating equivalent to detonating 1 million atomic bombs daily throughout the year. As a result, the Arctic sea ice is melting every year. Between 1992 and 2020, 7.56 trillion tons of Antarctic and Greenland ice melted. The annual rate of ice loss has more than tripled over the past 30 years. Scientists analyze satellite data to monitor extreme shifts in the global water cycle, having long warned that rising temperatures would amplify both wet and dry extremes. And ocean warming is serious, very serious as well, because 93% of the heat trapped in the Earth's atmosphere is being observed by the oceans due to man-made global warming. Higher ocean temperatures will lead to more powerful typhoons, and warm air holds more moisture. Therefore, heavy rainfall will also increase, and unstable jet streams will cause prolonged storms. As a result, we will witness more extreme weather events. You probably remember the press reports like the Himalayan highlands experienced the serious landslides and there was this melting of Himalayan glaciers leading to bridge collapses and flooding, and the dam near India has also collapsed, killing so many people. There are so many dams alongside the Himalayan glaciers, and if the Himalayan glaciers melts away, there will be more natural disasters to a human. And what about Korea? Korea is not an exception. Korea is also experiencing flooding and drought at the same time because of this global warming. As you can see from the left-hand side, you can see this picture during Seoul flooding last year. Gangnam area experienced severe flood, but at the same time, the Namhae area experienced extremely dry season, and the drought will have more serious effects. Do you remember the Australian wildfire, which lasted several months to be witnessed even from outer space? And 1 billion animals were killed. Kangaroos, koalas, they were killed by this man-made wildfire. This is truly a natural catastrophe, and that also had a very serious negative impact on the respiratory health of the neighbors. There's UNDRR forecast disasters in the future in 2022 and 2021 for about 20 years. There were 370 natural disasters. However, study from 2022, only in 2022 alone, 347 natural disasters took place. 387 cases of natural disasters took place in 2022 alone, which is 17 cases more than the number of natural disasters during 17 years. Then what about economic losses from the climate disasters? According to the research results by universities and the research centers, for the past 2 decades across the globe, climate disasters have resulted in an estimated $223.8 billion in economic losses. And hourly, the economic loss amounted to 21.5 billion Korean won. And what about responses made by the mankind or the international community? As you can see from the cartoon in the 2020, it was a cartoon drawn during the pandemic days. I believe this cartoon has a very piercing insight. It shows that the climate disaster and biodiversity collapse will bring much bigger challenge to the mankind, and biodiversity collapse will be even a bigger catastrophe done climate change to the mankind, because we are all interconnected within this ecosystem. Therefore, to prevent this, we have to create a low-carbon society and be well prepared to expect any negative impact that can come from climate change and biodiversity collapse. International community is making commitment or pledge every year to be better prepared against the climate change, and various stakeholders come together for UNFCCC COP.
15년에는 프랑스 파리에서 열렸습니다.
This conference was held in Paris in 2015, and it was a COP21, and more than 50,000 people came together in Paris for Paris Agreement adoption. And there were several very important commitments. One of them is to bring down or limit the global temperature rise within 1.5 degrees Celsius. It was a very ambitious target. In 2018, 3 years later, at IPCC, this 1.5 degrees Celsius special report was adopted to reach or achieve the Paris Agreement. Based on scientific research and evidence, the countries have to set their own policies, which include adaptive and mitigating measures for Paris Agreement. And the sixth report announced by IPCC, which is the latest one, is very important information.
In order to control the temperature increase to the 2 degrees Celsius, we have to cut down emissions by more than 30 billion tons from the current levels. And IPCC published the sixth assessment report, and according to the report, if emissions continue to rise, there is a risk of exceeding 1.5 degrees Celsius warming between 2030 and 2035. In this report, it emphasizes adaptation and the mitigation, and to do that, energy poverty, the reduction, and the ecosystem conservation have been suggested. And we can see the other warning signs as well from the report. And it's about the impact on the current and the next generation. According to IPCC, and so those born in 1950s and 1980 and the 2020, the world described in a graph, and the babies born in 2020, the world experience a 4 degrees Celsius the temperatures increase. And according to this report, the world experienced by the current and the next generations will be determined by our choice. And we have to prevent the world from nearing the point of irreversible global warming. If we make right decisions about infrastructure, food, and water security, and we can positively impact the human health and well-being, we still have choices. However, we can seize the opportunity when we are ready. In order to capture the opportunities, we have to take a whole system approach. Then let's look at the global efforts to advance gender equality in the context of climate change. Let's see what the international community is doing for that. Disasters, especially natural disasters, is impacting the gender equality. According to the UNEP report, when there is when there is a climate disaster, women are 14 times more likely likely to die than men, and also the disasters impact disproportionately women's health, economic security, and access to education. In 1991, when cyclone occurred in Bangladesh, women accounted for 90% of 140,000 deaths. And when the Indian Ocean suffered a tsunami in 2004, 70% of casualties were women. And women's social status and cultural norms influence the extent of the damage they experience from climate change, and men sometimes face a higher risk of contract infectious diseases due to more of the frequent outdoor activities. Through gender equality, we can approach climate change responses in a diverse manner. In 2020, according to the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism of Korea, the women are more involved in climate response, and so we think that when the women participate, so we can make a difference in the local level climate projects and policies. In September 2015, then Secretary General of the UN, Ban Ki-moon, led the SDG, which are the targets as a 2030. SDG is Sustainable Development Goals, and especially in SDG 5 and SDG 13, gender equality and climate change are the goals respectively. And the UNFCCC's COP recognize the gender equality as one of the ways to combat climate change with ongoing efforts to advance these causes. Gender Action Plan was adopted in COP25, and the importance of supporting women's education was discussed in 2021. According to the Gender Action Plan, and the UNFCCC parties and subsidiary bodies have targets and activities, and also in GCF, whose headquarters is in the Incheon, Korea, launched its Gender Policy and Action Plan in 2015, and also the Climate Justice report was published. And what about the efforts of Korean government? The Korean government is making diverse efforts, especially the Office for Government Policy Coordination Strategies was published, and the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family established the basic plan for gender equality policy. And it is going to capture the gender gap from the work and the climate response, and the international organizations are also making efforts. And the international community and the government are not alone. Many private sector entities are advancing gender equality. I'm going to take one example. I am serving as a chair of the Climate Change Center, and Climate Change Center is distributing the cook stove and the clean stove, and as part of the CDM, Clean Development Mechanism project, it reduces carbon dioxide and the harmful emissions, and distributing the clean stoves and the cook stove, we can enhance the health of women and children by providing a hygiene and a comfortable cooking environment. and the cook stoves are manufactured locally, so it creates local jobs for residents. Climate Change Center is currently distributing 1.5 million cook stoves for Myanmar and 500,000 cook stoves in Ghana, Africa. And this is my last slide, and there are a lot of the gender gaps, and also there are gaps from the global south and global north, and current generation and future generation, and the city and the rural areas. And these gaps undermine the equality, and they undermine the impact of climate change. In order to respond to the climate, all members of the society should participate and work hard together. And not just gender equality, when the gaps are closed, then the members of society can better respond to climate change in a wiser way. And for our society and for the planet, I wish for an advancement of gender equality. Thank you very much for attention. Thank you very much. That was a keynote speech by the chair of the Climate Change Center, Yoo Young-suk, and she's also a former Minister of the Environment.